Yo, what up, y'all? I'm your host, Will. Welcome to Fandom Frequency, where we get into the entire multiverse of pop culture, movies, comic books, wrestling, you name it. We talk about it around these parts. So make sure you're clicking on the buttons below the video. We really do appreciate all of your support for the channel and all your new subscribers coming in lately. Much love to each and every one of you. But today, we're going to be getting into one of my most anticipated films of the year, probably my second or well, I'll probably say my second most anticipated horror film of the year, right after the sequel to this. But I'm talking about Ty West, MaXXXine, the cap to the X trilogy that started back in 2022 with X, and then you had Pearl later that year, and then now, after a little bit of a delay in 2024, we finally got the unveiling of MaXXXine, the ending of the dopest horror trilogy in years and one of the best horror trilogies of all time. And that's not something that's actually excuse me, a common occurrence in the horror genre, man. So this one, so for this one, Ty West is picking up the story where it's several years later. I think we're talking about 6 years. I think because I think X took place in 1979, if I remember correctly. And this film right here, MaXXXine, takes place in 1985. We're picking up MaXXXine in LA. Open casting call for a big horror sequel from an indie horror film that's now getting really popular and going to be theatrically released. This is her big break. She gets the starring role, but a lot of things from her past are coming back to haunt her, and it all ties into the trilogy. So before we go any further, spoiler warning, spoiler review. It's all in the title. It's going to be in the description. So if you don't want to know about the killer, if you don't want to know any details about this movie, before you've seen it, make sure you click away, go watch it, come right back and watch this right after you see the movie. But with no further ado, let's get right into this thing and getting into my overall thoughts on the film. While it fell just short of my expectations just a little bit, I still thoroughly enjoyed this movie a lot. And the 80s vibes with the whole kind of film noir kind of vibe with the detective kind of story going on, with them trying to figure out if there's a copycat killer with the Night Stalker running around in the 80s, killing people all over LA, and all the victims, obviously, between Halsey's character, a fellow porn star or a stripper friend or whatever, I think a porn star, if I'm remembering correctly. And all these people keep turning up dead from the Night Stalker, but this copycat killer, which we'll talk about the reveal of the actual killer's identity in a bit towards the end here, but so all these killings are going on, and Maxine's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with this. She's getting like PTSD from the events that happened in X when she had to kill Pearl and stop her from trying to kill her, and all her friends getting killed off one by one and whatnot, and the guilt and the trauma that she feels from the whole event, and the way that they handled all that and kind of tying it into the events of the other films without heavily relying into Pearl, because that's more of a prequel from 1920 something, so it doesn't tie in directly to this film, more so kind of filling in the blanks for X and giving you a little more context on the villain of that film. But the way that they were able to follow up everything thematically with this film from the previous film of X in the continuity of the story anyway was brilliantly done, and I really love the way they did that. And the whole film noir aspect with um uh Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan's detective characters, the LAPD homicide officers that are trying to solve these Night Stalker copycat murders and everything like that. I thought their role did a really good job, and the whole film noir aspect and the whole crime thriller vibe that this movie was going for, and leaning much more heavy into that than kind of the more 80s slasher or even some of the giallo vibes that the film brought, not just in its color scheme, but also in the killer's design with the black gloves and the all leather and the mask and the top, in the fedora and everything like that. Very much giallo, very much late 70s, 80s Italian horror. And for those of you that aren't aware of the giallo subgenre, for those of you that like horror but maybe aren't as well versed in it, it's this subgenre of Italian horror that got really popular in the very early, like mid 70s, all the way into the mid late 80s, with films like Pieces and Tenebrae and Twitch of the Death Nerve and Bay of Blood and all these different films from different Italian filmmakers, like probably the most infamous, even with like stuff that kind of goes outside of that a little bit, but like Suspiria and things of that nature. Opera, Deep Red. We're talking about Dario Argento, who's essentially kind of the grandfather of Italian horror in a sense, of giallo films especially. So Dario Argento, so I can get that out correctly. His daughter's even directing things now too, which is pretty cool. You also got directors like Mario Bava And I feel like there's another one that I'm missing, but those are some of the big names in that subgenre. And the one I would probably recommend to y'all the most, if you dig slashers, or if you really like serial killer films, like crime thrillers, like Seven, Zodiac, different things like that. Not just David Fincher films, but you get what I'm saying. I would definitely check out Tenebrae from like 1985 or something like that. Really, really kick-ass movie. One of the craziest um death scenes ever, where this lady gets her arm chopped off, and the way that it looks so realistic but over the top with the bloodshed and everything, it's really crazy. I really do recommend I think 1985 Tenebrae. Really cool movie. If you want to go with something a little bit outside of that, but just Italian horror, but one of the more interesting and one of the most iconic ones for sure, check out Dario Argento's Suspiria. Really cool. One that looks really dope from the previews, but I haven't seen the full movie yet, is Opera. That's another one I would recommend, and I hear a lot of good things about. But so the way that Ty West was able to blend in these giallo elements, to me, worked very, very well. And this the whole visual 80s aesthetic. It just really captured the vibe and the feel of 80s movies and of 80s pop culture, and that grungy kind of that dingy kind of more edgy vibe of the 80s, even in some of the more unorthodox like music choices from bands like Rat and things like that. The way that he was able to seamlessly blend in the style worked just as well as it did in the 70s with Pearl and the Texas Chainsaw vibes he was going for, and the whole kind of golden era, you know, world's greatest generation kind of early Hollywood 1920s, you know what I mean, when they really got into the talkies and all that. So the way he's been able to seamlessly blend these different genres and elements and different eras into his film has been seamlessly done, and he does it almost better than any other filmmakers. And I would say maybe just the Duffer Brothers with Stranger Things. They capture the 80s, I think, just as perfectly, if not better. So those are the only other people I can kind of compare this to. But this film really is just oozing with style and charisma, and I really, really appreciated that. And when it comes to the kills and stuff like that, I don't think it's anything mind blowing. The carnage candy isn't something that's gonna shock you, like that film that came out earlier this year, In a Violent Nature, where they bend the girl, the yoga girl, backwards and shit, like he's Jason Voorhees. It's nothing that crazy. There is one particular kill scene with the actual killer, and like with the black character, I forget his name, and the black guy doesn't die first, so we're kind of getting around that trope. But Maxine's friend or whatever, the black punk rock kind of guy, when he gets killed off in his little video store or job or whatever the hell he's working in, the way that they kind of are able to kind of like slice him across the face and slice him from the back of the neck and everything, it's very much Giallo inspired in that scene, and just very one of the more brutal kills in the film. And when Kevin Bacon's character of John LeBlanc or whatever the hell his name is gets crushed by the by the car compactor, that was pretty gnarly as well. And don't you think I'm not gonna forget? I'm gonna forget to mention my boy Kevin Bacon. He did a really good job in this film. Some people are kind of saying his performance is a little cartoonish or a little too over the top. I personally didn't feel that way. I thought a little bit of that over the top nature of it, and a little more. It fit into this film very well with the overall style, at least in my opinion. And I think Kevin Bacon's such a great actor that no matter how over the top or how understated he wants to play something, he always works for me in film. I've never really watched a film where Kevin Bacon's performance didn't work for me. And he's one of my favorite, kind of up there as one of my favorite actors as well. So I thought he did a really great job being able to kind of steal some of the scenes and be able to work alongside Mia Goth's character really well, and be able to play off of her and things of that nature, and just the way he was doing the southern drawl and all that sounded really legit to me. So I thought he did a great job in the film. And when it comes to the tension and some of the suspense, I do kind of wish they had a little bit more tension and suspense kind of sprinkled into the film, and kind of went a little more hardcore with the kills, and maybe even added a few more in there. But overall, you know, it was still well done, and the kills that we got were pretty crazy. Like Maxine stepping on the mime's dick in the alley when he's about to try to attack her or whatever, and just the way she makes him suck on the gun and like completely just bitches him out, and then literally stomps his dick off of his body and kills the guy and leaves him there in cold blood. That was pretty hardcore, and I wonder why the detectives didn't get on her about that. But maybe they figured any hooker or any person could have killed that dude in the alley. He's just some freaky mime dude trying to harm people in the alley. So I guess they didn't feel too bad for him or feel the need to throw him into the mix. But I was kind of questioning that getting into the second and third act of the film a little bit. And don't you think I'm going to get into this film without talking about the main fucking star, Maxine fucking Minx? And I'm talking about Mia Goth. Once again, does such a great job with this character of playing Maxine once again, and kind of showing a little more of the guilt and a little more layers of the character in a little bit more of an understated way. Not necessarily going for it full force like she was in Pearl, but I thought her performance was a little bit more engaging than it was in X. Not that her performance in X was bad, but she felt a little more standoffish, a little more understated, a little more to herself, and a little more drawn in. In this film, she felt a little more charismatic and felt a little bit more on edge and a little bit more off kilter and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? She seemed a little bit more crazy in this, and in a good way, you know what I mean, and not that Pearl kind of over the top way, but in this, in a little bit more of a subtle way. So I just love the way that she was able to deliver all the dialogue and do all the kill scenes and kind of do the whole moment. Like I said, that scene with the mime in the alley, the weird mime dude in the alley, was fan fucking tastic. Like that's where I disagree with certain people saying that her performance wasn't as strong in this one. Totally disagree with that point, and just some of the discourse I've seen online. I thought her performance was great in this film. And when it comes to the overall killer reveal and things of that nature, I thought it was a little bit weak and a little bit predictable. The fact that it was her father, and it does thematically tie in to the trilogy and from the beginning and end of X when you see the preacher on the screen, and then it's revealed at the end of the movie X that the actual preacher on that TV screen that Pearl and them were watching was Maxine's father, and she even worked with him in the church and was going to be like a big star in that until she got her a desire to be famous in entertainment and end up getting into the porn scene and everything like that going in 1979, and then all the rest is history. So yeah, the killer reveal, not necessarily shocking, but makes a lot of sense with the overall themes of the trilogy, and makes a lot of sense for the story and plot line and everything, and how he hired Kevin Bacon as a private investigator to help him find her in order for him to kind of initiate these killings and do all this crazy shit. And the actor, I don't necessarily know his name, but he did a phenomenal job, I thought, playing the character and everything like that. And that character kind of inherently being a little over the top, I thought fit the vibe of the movie. And even though the third act I don't think is as riveting as it was in X, and I think overall some of the execution of this film isn't quite as fine tuned as it was in the first film, X. But overall, this is a really kick ass movie, and I think Ty West did a phenomenal job overall directing this thing. It's oozing with style, it's really well put together and edited, really great music choices, really cool sound design, and everything like that. And the cinematography, so many cool iconic shots of things that we've seen before in pop culture, like Bates Motel and everything like that. And I almost forgot to mention one of the actresses in this movie, and I gotta bring her up because I thought she did a great job portraying the director character. Give me one moment, y'all. Let me see. What's her name? I always forget this woman's name. Elizabeth Debicki, who is just getting better and better with every performance I see of hers. But I thought she did a great job as the director character. And Lily Collins comes in here and has a really great performance as well. And there was one thing I wanted to look up because as far as I remember, I don't remember Lily Collins being British or something like that, or Scottish or whatever the hell her accent was. But apparently she is British, so I guess that was a real accent. And I thought she did a great job with it because I've seen her with an American accent before. And her little bit part in the movie before she gets chopped up and put into a damn suitcase was pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this film and had a really great time with it, and I hope you guys do as well. All you guys, gals, and everything in between out there. But I want to hear from y'all. What did you think about this movie? Let me know down below. Where does it fall for your ranking in the trilogy? For me, I think it's kind of interchangeable with X. Maybe Pearl might be a little better. I don't know. I need to see this movie at least a couple more times to kind of decide that for myself. But I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I'm going to give it an 8.75 out of 10. I thought this was a really kick-ass movie. Really good job. Not quite as strong as some of the two other installments, but still a very worthy end to the trilogy. Not disappointing, really, to me, but just didn't quite reach didn't quite reach its potential, but got so freaking close. I got to show it some love, and I thought it was a really kick-ass movie. So can't wait to see y'all in the next review. We got our X-Men review series is going to be continuing this week. After you see this review right here, Long Legs with Nicolas Cage and Michael Monroe is coming out soon, so we should have a review coming up for that within the next week. Like this weekend, maybe by a week from now by the time you're seeing this. Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1 is coming out on July 18th, so we will have a review for y'all before the end of the month or before Deadpool and Wolverine rolls around. But like I said, we're going to have a lot of X-Men content coming at y'all throughout the rest of this month as well, leading into Deadpool 3 and leading into August and bleeding into that a little bit. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that dopeness. Appreciate each and every one of you for sticking around to the end if you did, and much love to each and every one of you. We got a lot more dope content coming, and I'm going to kind of squeeze it in around my 9 to 5 because I love doing this and just having fun talking about the pop culture I love the most. Going to try to get a little more wrestling and music coverage on the channel as well, just trying to balance it out because I am bouncing between two jobs right now. But once I'm down to one, I'll be able to get a little bit more time on the channel. Got some cool guests I want to bring on, some people I met throughout this year and things like that, some other close friends of mine that I've worked with on the engineering side of audio production. So gonna try to bring in some guests and do some really cool stuff. Steph should be coming back on the show soon from the Final Girls, for those of you that know her. So we're gonna have a lot of cool stuff coming for you guys, man, so make sure you stay tuned. Don't sleep on any of it, and we're gonna catch you again on the next one. Peace.